I live in England, down on the south coast, and there's a woman on the other side of the world who I've never met, but I have a connection with her, a personal connection. It's not a connection that I'm very proud of, really. It's not a connection I really want. But this is a strange woman who has decided that she is no longer going to try and keep her job. She's resigned, effectively, very tearfully. The connection that I have with her, which I regret terribly, is that my daughter, my lovely daughter, the apple of my eye, my beautiful daughter, who's around about 30, about 5 years ago, she decided to leave England. She wanted to see the world. She wanted to have an adventure. And she went to New Zealand. A fantastic place, a lovely place, and she loves it. It's wonderful. And over the years, she worked in the hospitality industry, and she still does. She thoroughly enjoys it. She's been there now, as I say, for about 5 years, and I miss her dreadfully. She's had her sponsorship several times over, and now she has her residency, and I'm incredibly proud of her. As you know, we had a pandemic. It wasn't a very pleasant time. We were all scared. There was a virus going around. There were various treatments that we could have used, but of course, as you know, we were advised not to do any of that, and we had to wait for a certain medical procedure. And when this medical procedure came, which we thought was going to be the end of it, it seemed that it wasn't just going to be for those people who the virus was really attacking and being difficult for, people perhaps in their 80s or people with comorbidities, but actually this medical treatment was going to be given to a lot more people. In fact, in some places in the world, it was going to be given to everyone, and that seems to have been the mantra from everywhere. There came a difficult period in which many people in certain industries found themselves having to face, whether they liked it or not, having this medical treatment given to them, or they'd lose their job. My daughter was very resistant to having this medical treatment, being a young woman with years of her life ahead of her. She didn't want it. She didn't need it. It wasn't necessary. She had already had the virus. She'd built up her own immune system. There was absolutely no need for her to have a medical treatment. But her boss, unfortunately, whom she got on with extremely well and she enjoyed her job, said unfortunately he could only employ people who'd had this medical treatment. It was forced on him by the government. I said to her, I pleaded with her, please, come home. You don't have to have it here. Come home. We'll sort it out. Maybe return another day. But my daughter just loved it in New Zealand. It's a fantastic place. The people are lovely. She enjoys it. What can you say? And it's not for me to tell my daughter what to do and how to run her life, of course. So regrettably, she had this medical treatment, but only the one. She had no more than that. She just did what was absolute minimum and necessary to keep her wonderful job, to keep her friends, and to live the life that she wanted to live. Of course, I was saddened by that. It is a very difficult thing for a parent, knowing that a daughter or any child has had to undergo something, and particularly a medical intervention, that they don't necessarily need, that has nothing to do with them. This process was mandated and forced upon by this woman that I was telling you about at the beginning. I don't even want to mention her name. Not because I'm frightened that mentioning her name is a bad thing, but I don't want to give her that respect, because she effectively mandated that my daughter had to have this medical treatment, of which it's an experimental treatment, and I don't know whether now my daughter is in a difficult position that perhaps she she may not be able to have children, or if she has children there may be complications, or that those children may be sterile. There's lots of different permutations of the things that might happen. You see, this medical treatment that my daughter was forced to have has had problems. Even a member of parliament in this country stood up and started to talk about this, wanted to share information that he had, which is common information and is recorded on a yellow card system, yet nobody was prepared to listen to him in our parliament. And in the end, they had to get shot of him, and he was suspended. Nobody wanted to talk about the problems of this medical treatment, which I found extremely difficult, because everywhere you look, other people are talking about it, but not our parliament, not anyone else. In fact, it's still being rolled out as safe and effective, and yet a lot of people are worried about it. Very worried. So when this woman decided that she would now no longer be in her government, and she made a very tearful statement about this to the press and her parliament, I'm afraid I didn't feel at all sad for her. She mentioned a curious thing during her resignation information speech. She mentioned that she wanted to spend more time with her family, which is fairly normal, but she also wanted, she said, that she was human. She wanted to make sure that people knew that she was human. It reminded me of our former health secretary. He also wanted to remind people that he was human. He even went to a jungle in a nearby continent on a television program to try and prove that he was in some way human. But to me, he wasn't human at all. Not the things that he, again, like her, had forced on this country. Very similar treatment, forcing people who wanted to keep their jobs or stay in the medical profession itself. They had to have this medical procedure, this experimental drug pumped into them, with no address if things went wrong. I made a video about it where I said I would never forget. And I will not forget him. And now that she is going, whether she's resigning of her own volition, or maybe she was pushed, maybe she was a useful idiot. She did all that she was told to do. Maybe she rebelled against it. Maybe she is human, but didn't know how else to deal with it. I don't know. It's conjecture. But I tell you this, I feel very personal that my daughter was forced to have this medical intervention, this experimental drug. And so to this person, this woman on the other side of the world, from my heart, I truly say, good riddance.